I was scrolling through Twitter and this caught my attention again. I've covered it before, but it's talking about the 2023 through 2024 game industry layoffs. I covered the 2024 side one time in another video where we're talking about the market pressures on the industry. And so far, about 25,000 jobs have basically been gone in terms of the gaming industry in these 2 years. We know that there are external factors. I don't know if many of you remember, I used to pull up an economics textbook that was written by a professor that talked about the marketing factors that have come in to pretty much change any industry depending on what you're looking at. So it's written by a gentleman named Michael Porter, a Harvard professor, and the book is titled On Competition. In his book, he points out market factors that can actually press on any industry in the grand scheme of things. I constantly point to this stuff, the threat of new entrants. This is basically new people coming into the industry. So now what we've seen and what we were even seeing during that COVID time was there were some new players that came into the game. If you remember, those of you who remember the history very well, Valheim showed up. This was just a survival game, and it did over 1 million units in a few days. Small dev team out of Sweden. Yes, these are, in a sense, veterans of previous studios. That was very interesting. Then the bargaining power of suppliers. So because of the number of games out there, you can basically see that there's some kind of a bargaining going on in terms of who can cop exclusive deals and who doesn't want to do exclusive deals. These are all factors that are, basically pressuring in there and a threat for substitute products or services. I've mentioned briefly in my videos that for every Wukong, there's a Wu Chang. Now, I mean this in the sense that Xbox players were saying at one point in time that Wukong was something that, in a sense, skipped their platform. Well, I'm convinced and I believe, now the evidence is scant, but I believe that based on PlayStation's history of copying and money hiding games, especially in Asian territories, that they found a way to go ahead and keep that game on their platform temporarily for a while. Because this is how they operate, and this is how they've operated to basically make Xbox look like it's irrelevant. When in reality, developers actually are showing their desire that they want to go on Xbox to leverage the ecosystem and the people that are there. But Wu Chang is one game that's coming very soon. So the new entries in the market and substitute products are very powerful forces. And right now, any development studio that's thinking of maybe making their game exclusive and has not signed a deal has to realize that if they lock their game down on one platform, the likelihood that their game is going to get competed against by another video game is very high. I mean, it's just weird because now the ideas are no longer original. Things like Unreal Engine are here to basically allow for developers to be able to, I'm going to NDA myself. Okay, no. Unreal Engine is available to be able to help developers go ahead and make games as with ease. Even I myself, good old school teacher guy, I'm punching out a video game. I click my library, but I'm gonna NDA myself if I do that. And again, that's just something that's very interesting. And this is just as a fun side project. I'm not here to fight with 1,000 video games that are coming out every month. I just want to do something fun because I think it's cool. I think we have the capability and we have access to people now because, through the internet, we can reach out to people all over the world that have skills that can do something like this in terms of making a video game for a small team. So put all these factors into, perspective. You are not so far off by seeing how this is a possible reality. But here's one thing that I've not necessarily pointed out, in a lot of my videos when we talk about this subject matter. What does the age of current gamers, their life, situations, and them basically in a sense letting go of nostalgia play into this? A lot of these developers that are making games or have been making games, they've been making games for majority of a demographic that is in anywhere from the millennial all the way through the boomers. The boomers, you can call them your early adopters. They kind of kicked off with some of the old school video games. Then you can look at, say, the younger generations after them, the Gen Xers. Then you come to the millennials and, even some maybe even older and some even younger in those generations. But when I look at, say, something like even my YouTube statistics, these are some really interesting data sets that I can get my hands on to say, okay, who are the people watching, the videos that I'm making? And are these people representative of the people that are playing the video games that are being produced out there? And if the answer to that is yes, then what are their life situations right now? And let me explain even further, because this is very interesting at the end of the day. So here is my YouTube analytics page under the audience tab. From what I see, the biggest audience that watches my videos are the 35 to 44 year olds. This is a very interesting demographics because it's a very interesting mix. But then the second highest is a 25 to the 34 years. So we can say that the biggest chunk overall, when we kind of like push it all together, is from age 25 all the way to age 54 in terms of people that are watching. Now, notice that there are 65-year-olds also watching as well on this channel. Now, that's also because I'm talking about general gaming news. I have another YouTube channel and I can show you the demographics as well. And please, bear with me when I walk through these data sets, because this is how they inform us as to what's going on. And you're going to see, and I've seen and noticed lately as well, or in past years, that the demographics on that channel was also slightly older and younger mix in a weird sense. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but you'll notice as well too that there's a similarity, right? 25 all the way through 54 are the biggest audience. Once you hit 25, as a male, I can't speak for a female, never had your experience, but as a man, your life starts to change significantly. As you start to enter your 30s, you start asking some really important questions. Is gaming something that I can invest a lot of time in? If it's not something that you're doing that brings in any profit for you, and it's a hobby, and so you're also in a position where maybe you're working more. Maybe you're trying to achieve, some things that are probably not gaming related that's eating and taking your time. Could it be that the majority, and this is a question I'm asking, that the majority of gamers are just aging out of their hobby? And so a lot of folk that are making these video games for us are now having to compete with a much more limited time frame that we have to give them. And if they're not in our purview, if they're not even in our periphery, we're not even paying attention to them. Now, mix this in with the younger generation that has come out now, and all of the games that many of them are playing are games that have nothing to do with our childhood for the most part, but their childhood. So they're growing up with a different kind of game as central to them. For instance, Minecraft. For instance, Fortnite. For instance, Apex Legends, and that's a much younger demographics, those 18-year-olds through 25, through 27, and then it's mixed in. I'm not saying that it's relegated to just them, but then you also have even some of us OGs that are now into those games as well, and those games are taking more of our time. So if you're not making any of these games either an established title that's already in the minds of a lot of people, or B, a game that is appealing to the younger audience that's free to play, or you were in that pipeline, Roblox and all that, you're in a really tight spot when it comes to releasing a video game. And so when the video game industry judged based on stay home, on what games they should make and how they should hire, many of them bet wrong. And this wrong bet has cost them significantly, and even cost the professionals that were in those industries. Not to add even the social political side of things, where some of the creators got too happy because they were taking investor money to meet specific markers and goals, that at the end of the day, most of the companies pretty much forgot themselves and forgot their, initial and most important aspect, which is to make video games that allow for them to make money. And at the end of the day, many people looked at those games and said, these games are more political lectures than video games. The developers want to change our lives and change the way we do things, and they want to influence our children on what our children should think. Now, note, the demographics of people that I showed you are of childbearing age. So what are they doing? They're introducing their children to old games that were free from what they deemed was not appropriate for them. Like me, I'm a father, and there are things I want to be the one to break to my kids and teach them. If they're in your video game, I'm not going to let your video game teach it to my children. I will teach my children first before I then expose them to a video game that may have those themes and say, based on what we've learned and based on what, you've been taught, this, aspect of this video game is something that we consider fiction, and you shouldn't absorb it as reality because it doesn't fit the values that have basically brought you here and have raised you up. That's just life. And that's also being kind of black. I don't know. Maybe I can't speak for other cultures. I haven't grown up in those environments. Values are a big deal. Values are a big deal at the end of the day. So when you take it all into consideration, this is very interesting at the end of the day. And there are internal and external forces that are really, touching the industry right now. It's insane. Everything from social to economic to financial to health wise. I mean, everything touched the gaming industry in the last 4 years. And the result has not been pretty for many. For some, it's been pretty, but for many, not at all. Talk to me in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Peace out.